And while we're picking on the Florida Gators, Dave, why don't we just start with you? They got a date at Vandy this week. We already talked it up a few days ago in regards to Florida and the psyche that we place so heavily on Tennessee. Maybe we could apply to Florida as well. This is probably the biggest game of the season to date that they've blown with a 21-point lead. How do they bounce back? We may not know this week necessarily because they should win in Nashville just based on talent. But your take about on Florida and Vandy?
Come back, and look better against an opponent that you're supposed to beat, better than they looked against North Texas and UMass early in the season. Come out and be aggressive like you were against Kentucky in the first half against Tennessee. I think that's the big thing, and it starts with owning that line of scrimmage again. Be physical up front, and especially on defense, that's where that secondary plays best. And Florida lost its pass rush against Tennessee. They also, lost their mojo in the secondary a little bit as well. So, but the Vanderbilt offense is showing up against Conference USA teams and kind of not so much against South Carolina and Georgia Tech. Ralph Webb is their biggest weapon, but I think he'll have a hard time getting much on this Florida defensive line. Kyle Shermer's looking a little bit better. He's hitting. He's had 2 games where he's hit over 60% of his passes against, and especially getting the job done last week against Western Kentucky. But it's different story when you get against this Gator defense. I think they're going to come back hungry. You would have to think they have to kind of come back and play a little bit ticked off about the way they showed up last week. And you can't talk about getting your swag back. You got to go out there and play like it. So and then shifting to the Florida offensive side of the ball. Austin Appleby will get his second start. It's another road start. He played well, and it's definitely not on his shoulders, the Tennessee loss last week. But offensive line had only given up 3 sacks of the year, but you can still see the pressure that they were giving up and not also being able to establish a run game. So, like I said, it's about, being more consistent along the offensive line and the defensive lines, but get that running game going. Florida, like I said, Florida still needs to be aggressive with Appleby, take some shots down the field again. That also helped the running game a good bit. But Vandy's defense to me has been a little bit more disappointing than we thought coming into this year. So I think it's a good chance, for Florida to start clicking, as long as they are aggressive. They tinkered in those other games against North Texas and UMass. Don't tinker in this game. Just come out, be aggressive like you were first half of last week, and you should be on your way to a pretty big win.
Mark, I think Florida's going to have a pretty easy time there in Nashville. If you look at Vanderbilt's offense, the 2 games that they were able to move the ball consistently, Ralph Webb had 306 yards between MTSU and Western Kentucky. The teams he didn't move the ball against, Georgia Tech and South Carolina, Vanderbilt had a total of 7 points. I think the strength of Florida's defense is that defensive front. So I think the Florida defense is going to do a lot of what they try to do against Tennessee, shut down the run first and make Shermer beat you through the air. Shermer's not the athletic runner that Dobbs is, nor do I think he has the arm that Dobbs has. So I think Florida's defense is going to be effective in stopping the Vanderbilt offense. As far as the Florida offense, here's what I think is going to help Florida's offense this week against what they played against Tennessee. Tennessee used 11 defensive linemen and 7 linebackers in that game. They rotated depth. Vanderbilt's defense is good. They don't have the depth that Tennessee had. That's the reason why Tennessee was able to start owning the line of scrimmage starting with the second half, that rotation of depth. So I think Florida's going to have a much easier time owning the line of scrimmage, like David said, both offensively and defensively against Vanderbilt this week. I look for Florida to go in and handle Vanderbilt.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you guys on this one. I think this is really about bouncing back for Florida. This past week was not typical what you saw coming out of that first half. It looked to me like there was just some management football going on. It was something that they didn't put the foot down, as it were, onto the throat, if you want to put it that way. But they didn't capitalize on the lead as much coming out of that second half, or coming out of the half. And I feel like that's something that we would see Florida this week, is see a team that doesn't let off, see a team that just comes out and finishes for 4 quarters, because I think at times the play calling was a little bit conservative for Florida in that game. And Mike mentioned the fact that they were rotating on an offensive line. I do think that's something that wore on that defensive front. I think you'll see, again, it was the best team that they had played so far. I mean, I don't think Kentucky really gave them much of a fight, and the teams before UMass really did. And this was their first real challenge. And I think this week it's about getting focused, getting back on that horse, and showing people that the Florida Gators are still in the mix, because ultimately in the East there's still opportunity. And so I think this team still has a chance to make some noise, and of course they will. One of the key things that kind of sticks out to me is that Vanderbilt's defense is allowing 26 points a game. And so I think with Florida, who's averaging around 32, 33 points a game, I think this kind of fits in their wheelhouse, especially when you talk about matchups. Vanderbilt is more of a grinded out, kind of a more of that tempo type of team. They're going to want to grind the clock. They're going to want to keep the ball. That's the reason why you've seen Ralph Webb, who's had success, who's also one of the key fulcrums, as it were, of this offense at 472 yards. I think that's going to be key for this defense, and it really meshes well with Florida's defense because they're run stoppers. And so I feel like this is really going to kind of play into their hands a little bit more. But that being said, I think they come out and they show their teeth. This is going to be the week where Florida kind of comes back on. They should come out and they should play angry, and I expect them to play angry against Vanderbilt. And even though Vanderbilt is 2-2 and they look to be improved, with I believe only 3 interceptions so far this season, I still think that they've got a ways to go in the East, and I think Derek Mason is the guy that's going to be able to turn things there. He looks like he is. But this week it's all about Florida getting back on track, and I think they need to go in with a huge chip on their shoulder and show everybody that they still are the Florida Gators and that they can still come out and get a major win.